I'm a big believer on setting proper expectations. So I tried to do it when I got married. I told my wife this is not going to be easy, but if you're still up for this,
it's going to be a 3 for me, but for you,
if you're still up for this, then let's do it. No, let's do it. That's about how the proposal went.
You do that well. You set proper expectations.
Welcome to the Know Your Ship podcast, presented by eHub. I'm your host, Frank Dolce.
This is the one and only Jeff Spangler. Welcome to the Know Your Ship podcast. What do you think of that? Do you like that?
I do like that. Yeah, I like that logo.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's got some big letters. It's got some small letters.
It's got some capital letters.
You got some presented by in there. So, you got eHub in there. That's fantastic.
If you were running a podcast, if you were the marketing director for a company like eHub and you were running a podcast, what would you put on the screen?
Well, first of all, I think if I were running marketing for eHub, eHub would be in serious trouble.
I thought you were going to say I'd get a new podcast host.
Well,
first,
I mean, yes,
I would change
yeah, that's also on the list.
But first, we would be in trouble.
Yeah, first we should acknowledge that things are not going well. Okay. Therefore, I'm now in as the marketing director.
Yeah. Well, we're in the month of March. And college basketball tournaments are happening now. I thought maybe we should throw up a tournament in the background here.
Let's do it.
But do you think that would be too distracting? Once when we were doing the podcast, all of a sudden, Caleb's email or something popped up on the screen. And let me tell you, there was some
stuff.
Yes.
Some discussions were had afterwards?
There were some interesting email exchanges.
I kind of feel like that just makes life more interesting, like you get to have that discussion with Caleb then.
Yeah. Would you feel any sense of anxiety if you ran away from your laptop one day because you had to go to lunch or something, and you forgot to close your laptop, and someone walked in and happened to look at your inbox and your email? Would you have any anxiety about that? Would there be anything in there that would cause you to immediately rush back to the office?
Probably not. I'm pretty boring that way. Yeah.
I think so. The way I think of you is super, very buttoned up, professional. You have a great sense of humor. As well.
I like to joke around.
Yeah, but I on the surface I would say if I saw there would be nothing interesting. In your inbox. Don't take that the wrong way. There would be nothing interesting.
Let me try and take that the right way. Let me start there.
In your email. I mean, I would look at your inbox and be like, wow, this is boring. But I want to know, I'm trying to dig out this dark side. Who could I talk to that would give me the dark side of Jeff Spangler?
That's a good question. Probably my daughter. She runs my social media now.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What does that consist of?
Pretty much everything, because I don't have social media. So, I take pictures of places that I'm at, and I send it to her, and I give her a little description, and she posts it wherever, and...
Is that like Instagram and LinkedIn, and do you have X or something else?
I know for a fact there's Instagram, and the reason I know that is a week ago with some of my friends that they got very upset when they found out that she was running my social media because they instantly said, do you have any idea the things I've been sending to you on Instagram?
And you haven't seen
And I haven't seen any of them. And apparently she's been getting them all.
Isn't that part of her responsibility as the runner of your, or the manager of your social media?
This is kind of a new relationship.
To pass that along?
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is an opportunity for you to have a professional discussion.
It's kind of like your discussion with Caleb. I was able to have that discussion with her. Like we discussed what things need to be passed on to me.
Yeah.
And what things don't. And she had a good comeback to that. She said, well, that's going to require you to actually log into your social media. So I felt like that was a fair.
You did?
Yeah.
Like now she's putting it back on you, but she's running your stuff. What is your
True?
What
True.
is
That's
your
a good
favorite?
point. That's a good point. I should take a more hard line with her.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you'd like, maybe we can role play that later.
Maybe later. Maybe later.
Okay. So you have a life that I think, like, I look at your life and I get to hang around you a little bit and I'm like, man, I'd really like to have Jeff's life. Is it just an act, or is that real? I mean, is that the real deal? Because I look at you and what the things that you get to do, that seems really appealing. Is it the same? Do you feel the same way? Like, I feel pretty lucky.
Yeah. No, I feel very lucky. I get to do a lot of cool things. I do business with a lot of really, really good people. I've got great family and friends around me. But yeah, everybody goes through times where you're still saying, hey, I feel like I need to be more productive, or I feel like I want to do more, or I feel like I wish this project was going better, or whatever. Like I don't know. Maybe that's growing up kind of in an environment where I was poor. We didn't have much, so everything you just learn to work hard. So my dad always taught me, you get up, you work hard, and so. Yes, it's fantastic that I get to go do some of the things I get to go do. But every once in a while I wake up and I'm like, what am I really doing? I'm out there screwing around a lot and playing a lot of golf, hanging out with a lot of really cool people, doing a lot of these experiences. But you still want to feel productive. You still want to feel like you're accomplishing things.
I think that's a great point. I'm glad you said that because it makes you a little more human. Because the way that you manage everything, it just feels like everything's aligned. You have a schedule. You're after it. You're always grinding, and so I would like to talk about how you got to that point. I'd like to talk about your background. I'd like to talk and by the way, you've gone through some rocky times as well that I know about. You're welcome to talk about as much of that as you'd like, or not at all. But I want to know how that has molded you into what you are today and what you enjoy doing today. So let's start from the beginning.
Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, I know you grew up in Mexico. Sorry, New Mexico.
Nuevo Mexico. Mexico.
Nueve, or is it Nuevo?
Nuevo.
Nuevo Mexico.
Nuevo
the
Mexico.
O's have to match, right? Is that how it goes? Nuevo Mexico.
I don't think the O's have to match.
I think they do.
Are you sure?
No. I'm not.
I should know the answer to this. Growing up in New Mexico, I should know the answer. I took 3 years of Spanish too, but
how much?
That didn't go real well.
Oh.
Yeah.
I took 3 years of Spanish as well, and I can't speak. Obviously, I can't speak Spanish. Okay, so tell me about the hard scrabble streets of New Mexico.
It was great. I had a good time down there. It was interesting. It was different environment to grow up in. I don't know what to say about New Mexico.
That was just your experience.
Yeah.
Did your parents? Were they from somewhere else? How did they end up in New Mexico?
They were both born in New Mexico. My dad was military, so he traveled around a little bit. I was born in Los Alamos, New Mexico. He'd gotten out of the military and he he kind of located in Los Alamos, was working for Xerox. So
like in sales or something, or
he was a technician. So, kind of just blue collar environment. And then he moved. Both my parents were born and raised in the Four Corners area. And so they ended up moving back up into the Four Corners area.
The Four Corners area is not, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not a very highly populated area, is it?
No.
I mean, that's, and which reservation is that?
Navajo.
That's the Navajo Reservation.
Navajo Reservation is right by, well, actually, there's two. There's the Ute Reservation that's also on the Colorado side. Navajo Reservation kind of on the New Mexico and Arizona side. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so they were living in the Four Corners. What was he doing there?
Still working for Xerox. Worked for Xerox.
Gotcha.
When my when I was about 12 years old, my grandpa owned a number of potato chip, bread, and like Hostess cupcake routes, and I actually went to work for him as a 12-year-old kid.
Nice.
For one day, and then he came to my dad and told my dad that my dad needed to fire me. So he said it took way more time to do the routes with me out there than just on his own. So after one day, my dad and my mom sat me down, fired me from my very first job. Apparently,
after an explosive day on
apparently,
the job.
My grandpa, to be fair, I was a high-strung kid, and my grandpa did not have the patience for me. We had a few run-ins growing
on the
up.
route. Oh,
growing up in general.
What do you mean you were a high-strung kid? I would not describe you that way.
I got in a lot of trouble growing up. I had a lot of energy and
a lot of trouble. Let's define trouble. A lot of trouble because you were getting in fights. A lot of trouble because you disobeyed your parents. A lot of trouble because you just got mixed up in goofy things that you shouldn't be doing. Like
probably more of the second and third, kind of a mix of the second and third. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that I wanted to disobey my parents. It was that I had a lot of energy, and it was hard for me to stay focused. And so they would tell me to do things, and I had a hard time following that direction. And so it led to, I don't know. I mean, just as an example, we probably had 6 or 7 babysitters that just quit right in the middle of babysitting because they couldn't handle the craziness. And I don't even know how to describe it. I really don't know how to describe it. It was just me. I had a little bit of an issue with authority from other people outside of the firm hand of my father, and so it led to some experiences. It led to some interesting experiences.
I love what's happening right now. Like this, I would have no clue that this was in your background.
No, I had a nasty temper growing up too, a nasty temper, and I got it from my dad. My dad. I had a situation one time. As I mentioned, I got in a lot of trouble. I don't even remember what happened. There was a time one day where I was doing something with my younger brother. We started fighting a little bit. My younger brother starts to cry. My dad comes into the room. He's like, "That's it. You're outside." I knew what was coming. He was about to give me swats, and so. But he was so angry, and we're walking through the house, and I'm following him, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm about to get it. And as a kid, when you know that you're about to get it, it's never good. You got all the anxiety built up. Mm-hmm. But on our house, we had a screen door, and the old screen doors back then, they had those spring hinges on the screen door. Yeah. And so my dad, he's upset with me. He's saying, I don't even remember what he's saying, but he's saying a few things, and he keeps looking back, and he's looking forward, and he's walking outside furiously. And he gets to this screen door, and he hits the screen door because he's angry. He hits the screen door, and he kind of turns at the same time to talk to me, and that screen door comes back and hits him. And
this is terrible for you.
it actually ended up, it was terrifying, because I watched him rip this screen door off the hinges and shred it in front of me, just completely shred the screen door. But I never got swats. He was able to work it out. It turned from him having rage towards me to him having rage towards the screen door, and it worked out great for me.
That's amazing.
And it was shortly after that we talked a little bit about being able to control our anger as a family.
Okay, I have a couple questions to follow up on that. One, what did you learn about yourself after your one-day experience on the route with your grandfather? Was there a learning experience as you look back?
Yeah, there were a few actually. That was one of the times where I realized that my being distracted so much was going to hinder my ability to be productive in life. That was kind of the first time that I had a bit of a wake-up call. I mean, it was a good experience for me, honestly, because it was the first time that I was devastated. I was crying. I couldn't believe that my own grandpa would fire me and that he wouldn't even do it himself, that he made my dad do it.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of a conversation that I was able to have with my parents about that I needed to be able to take that energy that I had and direct it in a way that was going to be more productive for me.
That's good.
So, yeah, that was good. I also learned that because about a month later, that led to my dad having a conversation with my grandpa about my dad buying out my grandpa from his routes. And my dad ended up owning those routes, and I got rehired about a month later. So I also learned that it pays to know somebody. You got to keep the right relationships.
I know we're laughing about that, but isn't that true?
It is true. 100%. It's true.
It's not always about what you know, but who you know. And if you have the skill to go along with it, that's meaningful. Did you approach the job differently the second time around?
Oh yeah. I loved my dad. We had a relationship that was, he had a firm hand, but I loved him. I looked up to him. I respected him. So being able to have an opportunity to prove to him that I could work and that I could be productive was, I definitely treated it differently. And I worked really hard to become the guy that he could rely on, that he could eventually, I ended up running routes for him. I ended up kind of being in that position where I felt like he respected me as well, and that he trusted me and could rely on me. We didn't have a lot of money as a family, so it was one of those deals where I just felt good about being able to contribute to the family.
Yeah. Did you recognize early on? Is that a lasting memory of you, like this work ethic from your dad, from your family? Is that where you developed that?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. My dad, I think to this day, he could still outwork me. Like he that's just in his DNA, honestly. He likes to work. He likes to be productive. For sure something I got from him.
Okay, so you're back on the route. You're what, elementary school, junior high at this point in your life?
Yeah. What are you when you're 12 years old? I don't.
Yeah, you're probably like heading
12, 13.
into like junior high or middle school or whatever.
I was pretty young. I was one of the younger ones in my grade. So yeah, probably junior high. That's probably right.
Gotcha. Okay. At this point, do you have any aspirations of like, are you at this point, are you developing any other aspirations about what you want your life to be like?
Not necessarily. I mean, that was I would say that was one of the things that, so my parents were extremely supportive of me and the things that I wanted to do, but we didn't really talk about aspirations. We didn't really talk much about, future stuff and what that's going to look like. And I think that they'd kind of fallen into some of the things that they did. And I think that that's kind of, they grew up in an era where my dad worked for Xerox for years. And back then it was, hey, you'll work for the same company for years, and then you'll eventually retire from there. And so it was different watching him buy my grandpa out and realizing that, things had changed for him and that things could be viewed differently. And I don't know. I mean, it was a good experience in general for me I felt like I kind of got some of the entrepreneurial aspects of being in and around my dad as he went through that. Mm-hmm. And it kind of started to foster some of the feelings I had about how I wanted to be. But I don't know that I would have said that I was already thinking about it. I think that there were some things that were happening around me that were teaching me things that eventually I recognized as, hey, this is something I need to pay attention to.
But it wasn't necessarily like, hey, Jeff, like, you could own a company one day, or you could run a business one day, or you could, it wasn't, like you said, not this aspirational kind of stuff, but his thing was like effort, hard work, be productive, do your job.
Yeah.
Foundational.
No,
principles.
That's exactly right. So during this process of my dad taking over my grandpa's routes, he never, it was good, it provided for the family, but we still didn't ever make great money. And so it wasn't one of these things where it was like, hey, this is a great avenue because it's a potential to make money and really, we never took trips, we were fairly poor. And so it wasn't one of those deals where it was like, hey, this is great to be an entrepreneur. This is great. It was more like, yeah, this provides for the family. This gets us by. And every once in a while, my dad would talk about that people would approach him about, coming to work for them, and he would consider it. And I would watch him consider these other things. And so in my mind, it was like, well, that's just as good as owning your own business. But eventually you get a little older and you start to realize, like I would start to have conversations with my dad about, well, hey, what if we went in and talked to the store owners about getting some better positions in the stores? Like let's try and get more of our products sold, and that would make more money for us, and et cetera, et cetera. And he would do things like that, but I could tell that he wasn't as comfortable with it as I was. And so that's where I started to realize that he and I, even though I'd learned a lot of things from him, that he and I looked at things a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. As you go through this experience, did your dad, by the way, was that the rest of his career? He kind of ran these routes, and was he still working for Xerox?
No. He quit Xerox and went to work full time doing that.
Gotcha. And that's where
that's how he finished. Yeah, that's how he finished.
That's where he retired. It's a different deal.
Yeah,
like I have stories like that for my family as well.
Yeah,
saying in one thing for your whole career and retiring in that. So how did you end up getting out of New Mexico? Did you go to school?
Have you ever been to New Mexico?
I've been to New Mexico several times.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been to all parts of New Mexico. Like, you name a place in New Mexico, I've probably been there. I've been Four Corners. I had we would get turquoise jewelry and fry bread.
Both fantastic, by the way.
Absolutely.
Both fantastic.
In the Four Corners, as we were driving through, going to visit my grandparents in Colorado. I've been to Santa Fe, Taos, Albuquerque, Las Cruces. I mean,
you have been around New Mexico.
Yeah, I've been around New Mexico.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in Santa Fe? Do you know the church in Santa Fe?
Yeah.
And the stairway in
We took field trips to there. So,
you did?
As a kid, we would take field trips to there, yeah.
Do you remember the name of that?
I don't, no.
Anyway, we're just going to drive. We're not going to talk about the story, but I just wanted people to know what we're talking about. Okay, so you used to take field trips.
She's got it.
Is it Loretto Chapel?
Yes!
Yes, that's it.
That's exactly what it is. What is it again?
Loretto Chapel.
Loretto Chapel in Santa Fe. Yeah.
That's it.
Look it up. You can Google it. Okay. All right. So yes, I've been to Santa Fe, back to your point. So are you saying at some point you were like, I kind of want to get out of New Mexico?
Yeah, I chose to serve a mission. Most of my friends growing up were not religious. We, as I mentioned, we got in a lot of trouble sometimes. Good guys, like really good guys, but we did get in some trouble. And but on my mission, I met some other guys that were, they had plans of coming up and going to school in Utah, and I don't know. I clicked with them, and it was one of those deals where you start to talk about my parents didn't really talk much about future plans. And so even things like college, they're like, yeah, college would be great. We'd love for you to go to college. But we never really talked about a plan on getting there or, which school it was going to be or anything like that. It was more of a, we did a lot of sports in my family. So, my older sisters had both, gone on to play college sports. And
really?
And so I think the plan originally was that I was also going to play a college sport. And I was pretty good at baseball, but I was 5'9" and 134 pounds when I graduated. And so, not too many people looking for 5'9", 134 pound
not many
players.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, not getting a lot of offers that way. But so I think that from my parents' perspective, it was kind of like, oh, you didn't get a sports scholarship. So now what are you going to do? And
go to work.
Yeah. So go to work. Yeah. But, all of a sudden I met these guys on the mission and they're like, hey, we're going to actually go to college. We're going to go to school. We're going to do some other things. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, let's try that. Let's
good.
Let's go do that. So yeah, I moved up to Utah. And
were you a good student?
No, not particularly. I got decent grades. I was in the good classes. But I was not studious. I would put it that way. I was not good about staying on top of my homework and getting it turned in. So I got good enough grades to get by, and that was about it. I honestly don't remember doing much homework at all, ever. But I managed to get decent grades.
Okay, so you go through your mission. Where did you serve?
Mississippi.
Really?
Mississippi.
How was that experience?
It was
I
liked it.
Culturally, from New Mexico to Mississippi.
Very different. Very different.
What are the things that you love about Mississippi?
The people. They're very, very, very nice people down there. They talk about the Bible Belt, and it's a real thing. You got a lot of very, very Christian-based people down there that want to do good things for other people.
How was it delivering the message of the LDS Church in Mississippi? How was that experience?
It was good. It was a lot of fun. I don't know. You had a lot of people that were threatened by us down there, and so we got chased off some porches. We had people threaten us. But for the most part, it was great. People respect religion in general down there, and so outside of those few occasions, for the most part, it was fantastic. We had a lot of very interesting discussions with people, and you got a chance to see some of their culture and some of what they grew up in. So it's I like people in general, and I like unique people. I like unique stories. So anytime I'm around that, I enjoy those circumstances.
That's really interesting because most of the people I know who know you think of you as an introvert and not a people person.
Really?
Like someone who shies away from engaging with others. Like you're a loner.
Okay.
So maybe you lack self-awareness.
Yeah, maybe I do. That's possible. I'm not going to say that's not possible.
At this point in your life, I still have lots of questions about your mission, but at this point in your life, I want to know about your undiagnosed ADHD and how that's manifesting itself when you're now on your mission. Are you still like the rambunctious?
No. I had kind of a unique situation happen. This probably leads to me acting a little bit more like an introvert, quite honestly. He ended up being my best friend, a really good friend of mine, I should say. I had a few guys that were really good friends with me, but there was a guy that was actually dating my older sister, who had a little bit of a rough family life. He was struggling in the home a little bit, and for some reason, my parents decided to invite him to come stay with us, and so he actually came and lived with us, but one of the stipulations of him coming and living with us before I go into high school. So this is right before ninth grade. One of the stipulations of him coming and living with us was that he was to make sure that that I wasn't partying. He
had to watch over you?
He had to watch over me. So he's a senior. You know, he's one of the big jock studs of the high school. And I'm this coming into my freshman year kid. And my mom told him, she's like, hey, listen, you know, Jeff's not made a ton of great choices on some of this stuff up to this point. And so if you're going to come live with us, you can't be bringing that into our house. You can't be allowing him to see this and be around you and party, et cetera, et cetera. And so he took it serious, and he didn't let me participate in that kind of stuff. And it was eye-opening. Like, it was a change for me. Like, up till that point, it wasn't that I was seeking that stuff out, but I was around a lot of people that would try a lot of things.
You found yourself in those circumstances.
And I found myself doing things I probably shouldn't have been doing.
Gotcha. And so your parents...
But he shut that down. Like, he
hired a personal security guard.
Personal trainer. What, you know, today we'd call that a personal trainer, I think. But
I love that. That's such a great story.
Back then, it was just a random kid that came to live with us. So.
And you became pretty close to him.
Very close, yeah.
And is that a relationship that endures?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is he in this area, or is he?
No, he lives down in New Mexico still. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'd love to meet that guy.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take a trip.
He's a good dude.
Go to the chapel. We can go visit.
We get some fry bread.
Hey, I'm in for that. That stuff was so good.
So good. They make it very good.
Yeah,
down there. Very good.
There's
I'm pretty sure it's all healthy too. 100% healthy.
It's from the earth.
From the earth. That's right.
Yeah, it's healthy. Okay, so going back to your mission now, I'm so glad that you told me that story. By the way, no one describes you as an introvert, but that experience kind of maybe got you into this. I don't know. I was going to say more serious.
More serious. I was more reserved for sure.
Okay.
It led me to have to think about things more than I think I'd ever thought about things, and just started me down this. All of a sudden I was around people that were doing all the things that I had been doing, and I wasn't allowed to do them anymore. And I started realizing how bad of decisions people make in those circumstances.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah.
Anyways, that's a whole other story.
I would say this. This is not meant to be demeaning at all. That's not a good way to start. I would say this. Looking back on the first time that I met you in Scotland, I would say that you were friendly and that you were approachable. But I also feel like it took me a long time to work my way into a deeper relationship with you.
Interesting.
And maybe that's just because
I didn't really like you. That's I think that's what it was. If I'm being honest, I was like, would this guy please leave me alone? I can't believe he's still calling me. Why is he not getting the hint?
It's only funny because it's true. He keeps asking me to lunch and stuff. I don't want to go.
I don't know. You know, I don't know why that is. Honestly, because I felt like we had a good relationship. But yeah, it's probably a little bit that way. I don't know. I feel like I get a little bit that way with new relationships where it's a lot of small talk and pleasantries.
Yeah,
but
just kind of feeling it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes. Okay, let's go back to your mission.
Okay, let's go.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being this cakewalk, 10 being the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. What was your experience on the mission?
I don't know. I mean, missions are tough in general. So there were some tough parts of my mission, but I loved my mission. I would put it at like a 3, maybe like 3 or 4.
In terms of difficulty?
Yeah, like it was not hard for me. Like I'd already learned how to work hard, so that part for me was not difficult. It didn't bother me to go do the work.
Oh, I love that.
It didn't bother me to. It honestly didn't bother me that people were rejecting us out there. That didn't bother me at all either. Like I enjoyed the people I was around. I enjoyed the things that I was doing, and like I said, I met a ton of very interesting people, and that was fun for me.
But your background, maybe the way you grew up and your circumstances, very valuable in that experience on the mission, because it can be. It is a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't manage that very well.
No.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe the circumstances you were in, like you said, you love the people. That's the first thing you said. What was your favorite part about the mission? You said the people. And maybe that's another thing, is that you were just in a good element of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that was a lot of it. It was unique. I mean, I've tried to tell other people. I don't know that I could describe properly a mission, because I think a mission's different for everybody anyways. But whoever described it to me didn't do a great job either. Like, not that I blame them, but they
was
just
it
didn't.
your security guard?
It actually, yeah. He actually tried to talk me out of it, but that's a whole other story. No, but seriously, what do you tell somebody that's about to go on a mission? I don't know what you really tell them to prepare them for what they're going to be getting into.
What do you mean? You know what to tell them. It's exactly what your dad told you. Work hard.
That's what I've told my kids. What I've told my kids is, hey, it's going to be tough. Like I'm a big believer on setting proper expectations. So I tried to do it when I got married. I told my wife this is not going to be easy, but
for you,
if you're still up for this,
it's going to be a 3 for me. But for you,
if you're still up for this, then let's do it. No, let's do it. That's about how the proposal went.
You do that well. You set proper expectations. I know this because I went to you one day and I said, Jeff, and then you said, it's Mr. Spangler. And I said, Jeff, I'd like to be a single-digit handicap in golf. Do you think that's possible? And you said, I think you can improve your game. I definitely think you can improve your game. And I said, like a single-digit handicap? And you said, we can work on some things. And then I think I lost 4 or 5 rounds in a row to you, and I paid you $100 each round, and then that was done. I was done with that.
Yeah.
Yes. But you did set the expectation.
I did set the expectation.
Yeah, and it wasn't like brutal. Okay, I like to lean on some of the stuff I did in athletics and all of the life lessons that you learn that you don't necessarily learn in a corporate setting. I think those are valuable things, like hard work and effort and productivity and attitude, some of those things. Okay, since you were a 5'9", 134-pounder, didn't get a scholarship, but you did go on this mission. Could you say that you developed some of those things on your mission as well?
Let's back up, though. Let's back up. I do need to throw in there, because this is big. This is big. This is not too many people have this claim. About the same time that we were going through the transition with my dad on Xerox and the routes and stuff. Yeah. My dad also got into playing racquetball, and I started playing racquetball, and I took off with it. I really enjoyed it. So around the time of 16, I became ranked nationally in racquetball.
What? Can we verify this?
I'm sure you can. Yeah, I'm sure you can.
You were nationally ranked?
I think it was the under 16 or under 18 nationally ranked in racquetball.
And what does that mean?
Nothing. That means nothing. I think there were 30 other kids in the nation that played or something. So, but listen, I don't want you to.
I would claim it. Still,
I don't want you to slough off my
your
my
athletic prowess.
Yeah.
I understood. Okay.
So we can talk about athletics.
All due respect. Do you want me to ask you about the lessons you learned in racquetball or on your mission? Like I don't know where to go with. Like, with great determination and effort, I became a top 30 player out of 30 in the United States under 16. Is that how it goes?
It was something like that. Yeah, it was something like that.
I just thought of Rex Kwon Do. Do you remember that? Wasn't it Rex Kwon Do?
Rex Kwon Do. Yeah.
Yeah, with the American flag.
Yeah. The parachute pants. The parachute pants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I just thought of. Is that how you dressed? Parachute pants, a bandana, sunglasses. That's how you played racquetball. Cut off shirt and both hands.
That
a glove on both hands.
probably would have been an improvement over what I wore. That outfit would have probably been better.
What was your go-to? Let me guess. Go-to outfit, racquetball, John Stockton shorts.
It was
shorts.
It was
and a tank top.
Yeah. We had it was during the days of the short shorts for sure. No tank top. I mean, I was 138 pounds. There was nothing really to show off there. So it was just a t-shirt, just straight up t-shirt.
I think the interesting thing about racquetball though is, okay, if you're going to be ranked in anything, you have to be committed to that. It wasn't on talent alone that you. Okay, so what was it about racquetball? Why did you gravitate? Because your dad liked it, or because you demonstrated some ability?
I don't know. I did enjoy playing with my dad, and we, there was a gym there locally that they ran a really good youth program. So at the time there was a guy out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, who was involved with. I guess the U.S. had a team that played in the Pan Am Games. And so he helped coach this U.S. team in the Pan Am Games. And so he put together in New Mexico and Colorado and Arizona, he kind of put together this youth program where kids would travel around on the weekends and play other clubs. You'd go to these other clubs and you'd play against them and stuff. And so it became, it just kind of became this youth program that I got involved with and kind of...
Wow.
Kind of came up the ranks. I had two buddies that went professional in racquetball.
From New Mexico?
From New Mexico.
This guy, he was like the Nick Saban of New Mexico racquetball.
Well, keep in mind, he tried to convince me. He was one of the ones trying to convince me to stay and not go on the mission and play.
Develop your racquetball game.
And, that led to a line of questions of, well, what does that entail? He's like, you could go professional as a racquetball player. And I'm like, well, what does that look like? And he's like, well, you could get a sponsorship and maybe make like $30,000 or $40,000 a year. And so, all of a sudden in my mind, I'm like, that decision becomes easier. I should go on the mission.
That immediately pushed you toward the mission. Maybe he was doing that on purpose.
Maybe.
He was a genius. Okay. Do you want to talk about your racquetball lessons or your mission lessons?
What do you want to talk about?
Well,
I'm here for you, bud.
I think that's the first time you've ever said that to anybody.
I'm here for you.
Yeah.
The second time I said it was more meaningful.
It felt like it. I felt it the second time. Yeah, I'd like to talk about, it seems like we've gone through this where you were a crazy kid and over that experience working with your dad, your grandfather's experience, growing up having a personal security guard, like you're transforming, like and now the mission, and you decide like I want to go to college. Like that's the thing. I want to know about
as you're feeding it back to me, it sounds a little bit more like schizophrenia than transformation.
It was meant to sound transformational.
I mean, I'm just now realizing the way we've gone through this story makes it seem.
When we drop this podcast, it's going to be the schizophrenia of Spangler. It's going to be, people are going to be like, what? I'm tuning in. Brian Park has to tune in. He's been featured prominently.
Yeah, true.
In this whole thing. But I do want to know about the things that you, like the evolution, the things that you've discovered about yourself on the mission.
Things I discovered about myself on the mission. I would actually say the one big thing that I took from my mission was kind of what we've already talked about a little bit, that I enjoyed being around people that had really good traits and attributes. I realized there was a difference. There was a difference between some of what I grew up in and maybe some of the people I gravitated towards. Like, don't get me wrong, I had very, very good friends throughout high school. Many of them much smarter than me, have gone on to do extremely fantastic things. But I also hung around with some knuckleheads, and as my dad would put it. And I think that's one of the things I realized on the mission was that, hey, that's a choice of mine. That's a choice of mine on who I want to surround myself with. And, if I surround myself with people who have aspirations in the same direction and have, are talking about positive things and they're moving in good directions, then, hey, I'm gonna kind of naturally gravitate towards that. And I'm also going to go down that path. If I hang out with these other guys who are talking about doing the other stuff, the knuckleheads, as my dad would say, then there's a good possibility I'm going to be there too, and I don't know. I started to see some of that separation. I started to see.
It's such a great lesson. And people who are like, okay, so you can read all the self-help books, self-improvement books, which I have nothing against. I read plenty of those myself. But what is one of those lessons you're made up of the 5 people you hang around with the most?
Yeah, you hear that a lot these days. I think I learned that during the mission.
Yes. Like the fact
I wouldn't have put it to 5, but I would have, I definitely agree with that principle.
But the fact that you were able to discover that on your own is super, super meaningful. That's just been something that's been foundational for you as you have gone on through the rest of your life.
For sure. Sure.
Okay.
Hence,
I have this question.
I tried to, distance myself from you for such a long time,
I have this question. I mean, it's just, you want to say, like you're telling me I hang around the right people because I want to be thought of in that light as well.
I want to learn from those people. That's really what it is.
I know some of the other people you hang out with.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
So how do you reconcile that?
That's true. Well,
is that just the charity in you? Is it you saying these people should hang out with me because it's going to raise their level of?
I don't know. That's a good question. I hang out with a lot of people.
I know you do.
I hang out with a lot of people, and but probably to your point earlier, there is a bit of I am a little bit protective of who I really get deep with, and who I'm willing to get into deep conversations with, and that I probably truly respect what their opinions are and their advice is. Like those. That to me, I'll be friendly with a lot of people, but that to me is a little different.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I was poking fun at you a little earlier, but I also know some of the group that you hang around with and some of the group that I would say, well, like this is a different level. This is kind of a master class. This is a group that you or I could hang around with and say, like, this is where I find real self-improvement and introspection and reflection and all of those things. And the interesting thing about those people is it's the same thing. Like they're a little more guarded.
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to earn your way into the group. It's super interesting, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
To find yourself and to put yourself in those circumstances. So that's one side of it. But the other side of it is there are people that could benefit from being around you. And do you also interact in that way? Do you see yourself on that side of it?
That's a good question. My wife actually talks to me a lot about this because she gets frustrated that I get a little bit guarded sometimes, and she feels like I need to be willing to open up more. Not to sound like, hey, I need to go help people. It's not that, no. But to be able to connect and to be able to share some of my life lessons. I obviously we've all had interesting and unique life lessons, right? But she gets a little frustrated with me on some of that sometimes. But I think to some extent, my opinion is being able to share that. It kind of matters what time and place you share it in. Like I could share some of that information with some people in the wrong moments, and it's
meaningless.
It's meaningless. Like it doesn't come across the right way. In fact, in some ways, it might make them think this guy's the biggest idiot. I never want to talk to this guy again. And maybe that's my own self-consciousness. Maybe that's my defense mechanism a little bit. I honestly don't know, but I do feel like there's a time and place. Like even some of the people that I hang around with that you've referenced, I've gotten into some really, really deep, meaningful conversations with some of them, but I can't do that all the time with them. Like I can't.
No. Yeah.
It's almost like there's some very specific times where I've been able to do that with them, but then other times, they're not at a place where they're ready to talk about it, or I'm not at a place where I'm ready to talk about it. I don't know. It's.
Oh, I completely understand.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
This has all of a sudden become this. This feels way more like therapy than a podcast.
For whom?
For me.
Hey, just open up. I mean, take that wall down.
I'm doing that back sweat thing that we talked about earlier. All of a sudden,
I don't want you to back sweat. Well, I love where this story's going. I don't want to gloss over anything, but essentially you've gone on your mission. You now have the desire to go to college. You've been surrounded by some guys just because of circumstance that you have now thought, wait, yeah, it is really meaningful, the people I'm around and the influence those people have on my life. Now you're heading off to college, and at that point, are you thinking, what are you thinking? Like, do you have a career in mind? Is there something you want to do in college, or what are your goals at that point?
Yeah, I didn't know much, but I think I, as I mentioned, I had two older sisters that both had already been to college, and I think I asked them. I'm like, "Hey, what should I study?" So I think one of them said, "You ought to go down the path of physical therapy. You ought to do some physical therapy stuff." And of course, I didn't know you had to do all the generals first. Like I knew very little about this whole schooling process, truth be told. But I didn't know you had to do all the generals first and then kind of get into some of the stuff. So I started off just doing generals, and that was fine. I enjoyed school. I enjoyed the interaction with everybody else, and just the overall process. But then I think about a year and a half into it, I was like, I had to take some classes that are a little bit more geared towards, what physical therapy would be. So I think I took an anatomy class, and I realized pretty quick that I didn't love that. That didn't resonate with me.
Yeah. You weren't like fascinated by it. You were like, this is kind of interesting.
No, I was fascinated by it. I just, I wasn't good at it. Like I wasn't good at, I saw other kids, and maybe it was partially, I wasn't putting the effort into it. Like I said, I was not overly studious still, but I saw that I was having a hard time remembering, some of the basics of anatomy. And I'm like, this is going to take a lot of work, and I'm not that interested in it to the point where I'm willing to work at it.
There's a lot of people who decide on a path and then will kind of fight through it and fight through things like that. Maybe to know, I mean, I could say that about some of the things that I've done. Like,
yeah.
Okay, I have my mindset on this. I'm going to go through it. I know it's going to be hard, and get into it and have similar feelings. Like, it's interesting, but I don't feel like this is really good alignment. But I've set this goal.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, you're like, why did I do that? Why did I go through all of that? It feels like I've wasted years on this.
Yeah.
So
I felt a little bit that way. At the same time, I had started taking a couple marketing classes and a few other things like that, and that definitely resonated more with me. I wasn't convinced that the school thing was for me, but I did enjoy those classes. Like I really enjoyed learning about ways to do the marketing, finances in general. Like those types of things resonated more with me. But I also felt like what you were saying, where it was like, man, I feel like I've kind of wasted some time here. And I don't know.
Well, I think that the thing about it, or what I am taking away from that, is that you saw alignment elsewhere, and that's where you started to spend your time. I think that's really important, and a lot of people don't recognize that, is how important alignment is with what you are good at, what you're interested in, and what you find yourself doing, and trying to get on the right path as early as possible. If I go to talk to people in groups, I say that all the time. Like, get aligned early. I don't feel like I did that. I feel like I wasted a lot of time.
Yeah.
But you were able to kind of discover that, find the alignment.
Yeah, I did. I'd worked. When I came up to Utah, I took a job right away, and it was a job. It was a job doing sales. I was doing telesales, and it was for a company that eventually got bought out by Franklin. And it was a good company. They sold financial education products and stuff like that. And that for me was mind bending, quite honestly, because my parents had never taught me anything about strategies around finances or even thinking about finances, whatsoever. And so I was selling a product for a guy by the name of Charles Givens. He'd written a few books, Wealth Without Risk, More Wealth Without Risk, Financial Self-Defense. And really all it was financial strategies. It was basic stuff. Really, when you look at it, it was things like, hey, you're buying 4 different types of insurance. Some of those insurances overlap each other. So go in and take a look at where your insurances overlap and eliminate the stuff that overlaps so you're not paying as much. That'll save you, $70 a month. And with that $70 a month and a few other strategies, you can then take that and invest it in other places, yada, yada, yada. Well, that to me was mind blowing. I literally had never thought of any of that stuff before. So at the same time that I'm going through school, I'm also learning about all of these things, and I'm taking these marketing classes and finance classes at the same time, and I'm realizing that that's an area that I like. I really like dealing with those types of things, and so my dad actually at one point came up to visit us. I'm in Utah, he's down in New Mexico still. They come up to visit me and my sister, and I remember him telling me. He's asking me how school's going, and I kind of tell him about this dilemma. Like, I've taken this class, I'm not sure that I love it. And but he ended up saying something to the effect of, Jeff, not everybody has to go through school. Like, you have a good business mind. You ought to consider doing something in business. Like, you ought to consider going down that path as opposed to feeling like you have to grind it out in school, especially if you don't really like the anatomy and some of the things that are going to come with being a physical therapist, then don't do it. So that alignment that you're talking about, I think that he actually was kind of the one that gave me some clarity on some of that.
Oh, I love that.
He talked me into dropping out of school.
I love that. There's something to be said for someone who has clear vision like that. Who knows? It feels like maybe he just could see something there that, I don't know, maybe you didn't see, and you're ingrained in this. Well, I'm going to go get my education, I'm going to get a degree, and that's my path, and that third-party perspective turned out to be fairly meaningful.
It's interesting because it's come full circle now. I've got kids of my own who have now come to me, and they've said, I'm not sure school's the right direction for me, and I'm on the other end saying, hey, don't rule out school. Like, don't, you need to take school seriously. And I think if I were to rewind and have my dad give me different advice, it would be, hey, school plays an important role, and you can learn a lot of things from school. The classes that I was taking, the marketing classes, the finance classes, some of those that I loved, I would have encouraged me to continue to take more of those because, even in business, you need that stuff.
Absolutely.
But I would have said, hey, don't get so focused on the degree side of it. Don't get so focused on the direct path that the school's placed in front of you. Just take the classes that are going to benefit you on the directions that you want to go.
But use school. Use it.
Use school
for your benefit.
Use school.
You're not gonna. It's not necessarily like I have to get this degree. No, I want to know about. These are the things I'm interested. This is what I want to do. I need to know about this. It's super interesting because there's lots of stories about many very successful people who sat in a class and thought, I can't do this. I'm going to go do something else. They drop out and become very successful. But there's a lot more stories about people who drop out and things don't go the right way. So being in education, don't take that lightly. Utilize it for your gain. In fact, I'm deep into my work life. Not as deep as you, but I've started doing this thing where I try and take some certificate program at least once a year. And I just I just got into one on leadership principles, which I thought would be just entertaining. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, I like leadership principles. Like, I'll get a certificate, it'll be fun, but I'm not kidding. It's all online. I'm going through all this stuff and the material. It's like really insightful stuff. And I guess the point I'm making is, even though I've been in a career a long time and I feel like I have a sense of all of these things, there's still opportunities to grow and to learn and to utilize the educational side.
I think in some ways, maybe even more. Like, I think, and I don't know how you feel about this, but so my wife, she decided she wanted to go back to school. Mm-hmm. And so for the last couple of years, she's been taking classes as well. And so we've had a lot of conversations around it. And, she'll pull me into her conversations, into her classes, and she'll pull me into the discussions that they're having on some of that stuff. And I think I mentioned to her a little while back, I'm like, it's interesting because in some ways, now that you have more experience in the business world and in life in general, I feel like some of the things that you then learn in a classroom are even more impactful.
It's so true. It's so true. I can't imagine me 20 years ago or how I would take the information that's being provided now. The information that that's being provided now is like, oh, I get it. Mm-hmm. I've had that experience. I can contribute from my own interactions in a company as a leader and as someone who reports to a leader. It's so much more meaningful. And who knows, 20, 25 years ago, it would have just been material. Like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it would have been material to, hey, I gotta remember this so that I can take a test later and be able to answer correctly and move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Okay, so now you're in school. Did you end up finishing?
No.
Okay.
No.
You decided that you were going to get into business, and was it with this telemarketing firm?
Yeah, I continued on with them for a little while. They got bought out by Franklin. I was there for about a year after they got bought out by Franklin, and then had the opportunity I got approached by another guy that had started a call center doing some similar stuff, and he wanted me to come help him run that and partner up with him on that.
Okay, and that's because you did such a good job at. Did he know you from your previous?
He did. Yeah, he did. He
did a nice job there.
We had worked together, and we'd formed a business relationship, and either that or he had no other option. It was one of those two.
He'd crossed off.
Yeah, I think he'd been down the list a ways.
And here you were.
I think he actually called me the wrong name when he first called me, and he was like, "Oh, sorry." That was the guy in front of you.
Did you also tell him it was Mr. Spangler?
Yeah, exactly.
It's Mr. Spangler. Okay, so now you're in a position. You're what, in your early 20s?
Yeah.
Your early 20s. You've had this experience in a call center, and now you're helping to run a call center.
Yeah.
And what did that turn into?
That experience was rough. That was a hard experience. So we had gone with him. He had a financial backer. So I talked, a couple of my buddies into coming on with us, and we had set up shop in just a tiny little office, and we had started calling on leads that he somehow had. I honestly didn't even know where these leads were from, but it was kind of, we'd gone and met with his only client, and his only client was a guy that I kind of clicked with him, and he was an older guy, a guy by the name of A.D. Kessler, had a lot of experience in real estate and real estate development, and just life and business in general. Mm-hmm. And we had a dinner, and he was kind of this older guy that had all this wisdom, and somehow he convinced me that he was a great guy and that I should come on board with this project, and we should learn how to sell his product and figure it out. And so I convinced two of my buddies to come on board with us, and we started calling on these leads, and they were horrible. We started calling and realized real quick that they weren't good leads, and It wasn't going to be an easy process.
Okay, and what are you calling them for? You're calling leads for what? To buy
to sell education, to sell financial education.
Gotcha.
A.D. Kessler had created he'd written a couple books, and he'd also created a couple financial products to teach people how to invest in real estate and
Gotcha.
stuff.
Okay. I know the end of this story. So all of this background for me is fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, because now it's putting all of these pieces together, because you said a couple important things. One is you're selling education, and it's in real estate. Keep going. I just want to mention that. You're selling education, and it's in real estate. These are important things.
This leads to a really long story. So yeah.
I know it does.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you manage that however you want. Honestly, this is your time. This is the Mr. Spangler show. Sorry. Apologies. And listen, you don't have to, you can talk about it however you'd like. I think we're more interested in all of the lessons around it. So
there were a lot of lessons around it for sure.
Absolutely.
So on that note, this is what I would say. So the start of me in business was turbulent. I would put it that way. It was. I remember after about 2 days of calling on these leads, I went home, and I think I might have been crying myself to sleep or something. In my mind, I'm thinking, what did I do? Why did I leave a company like Franklin to come do this? And I'm a big believer that to have success in business, you have to have the right support group around you. And a lot of that starts with your spouse. I think in that moment, I think my wife came into the room, and I think she basically said, you've made this decision. You now go make it work. Like, you've already made the decision. You can't start thinking about the what ifs and all that stuff. Go make it work. And she's like, we'll be all right. We'll make this work. We'll figure this out.
Why are you so lucky? Like, why are you so lucky? Like, your dad is like, Jeff, hard work.
It's because I'm not smart, and so people feel like they should give me good advice along the way.
You never take my advice. Maybe that's because I think you're smart. Okay, so you have your dad who's like, Jeff, hard work is the path. And then in this experience, how long have you been married now? You've got to be newly
fairly
married.
New, yeah. I think 4 years.
And she comes in. I'd love to know about your wife's background. Like, for her to come in and be like, Jeff, this is not how we act.
Her background makes my upbringing look like a cakewalk. She grew up in a family of 12 kids on a teacher's salary. So, and her dad made all the kids work. 10 girls, 2 boys, and they all worked. Like, they all had chores every day, lights out by a certain time, thermostat doesn't go over a certain number in the wintertime. If you're cold, you go get extra blankets. Like, they
Oh man, it sounds like I have the wrong spouse on this podcast.
You probably do. She's way more interesting too.
Okay, well, she's going to be next.
Yeah,
we'll get her on.
We'll get her on.
Okay, all right. So this is so great. She comes in. She's like,
"Suck it up."
Suck it up.
She says, "Suck it up."
Basically,
she says it in a nicer way.
I didn't marry a sniveling, crying baby to be the man of the house. And then you said,
here's actually where
actually
where she was genius with this. Is she was yes, I did. I first wiped some tears away. No, here's where she was genius. Honestly, as I really think back on it, is she said all those things, but the way she said it was more of a, I believe in you. Like, you can do this.
Oh, you're hitting all the right stuff.
It wasn't a, hey, you suck, get up, quit crying. It was, you can do this. I believe in you. Like, you got every bit of ability to go make this work.
The cheerleader faith and all of the right stuff. Okay, P.S., this has just come up in my leadership principles class.
Really?
About
this very concept.
This concept of giving direct feedback with the thought that you have everything it takes to achieve it.
Yeah.
Like, you're struggling right now and you need to do this, but I believe in you, and you need to believe in you, and you can achieve it. And she
nailed it.
So it was one of those things that I think I do that, but I probably don't.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm like, I think I do that because I really want to do that, but I don't. Is that a lesson that you learned from that experience? Is it something you developed? And do you treat people that way? Like in leadership roles, do you find yourself in a position to say, hey, this isn't going well, but I believe in you? Or even just being that kind of leader?
Yeah. I think in general, that is more my leadership style. It's funny though, because as you're asking me the question, I think about it in two realms. And it's funny because my wife and I have also had this conversation. We've talked a lot about these things, but I think I do a very good job of that in the business realm. I think I'm very adjusted that way, and I'm very positive, and I build people up on the business side. I think I've not done as good of a job of that with my own kids, unfortunately. I feel like even though I am that way, even though I do a good job of that in certain moments, I feel like I was a little bit too critical along the way. And I feel like I focused a little bit too much on the things that they weren't doing well, as opposed to building them up on the things that they were doing well.
That resonates. And as much as I want to say that I was the inspirational father, I don't know. I've thought about it a lot, and who knows? Maybe, fatherly expectations get in the way.
Yeah.
Like you just want your kids to be all the things.
Yeah, yeah. Here's what I've concluded with some of that is I see their potential. Mm-hmm. I didn't do a great job of communicating that they had that potential. What I did instead was I tried to focus on how do I mold them into taking advantage of that potential.
Yeah.
Which led to me trying to almost joystick them through experiences, which, as we all know, that doesn't work.
No, that's exactly right. You know what you said about your dad? I think your dad would be proud of the role that he had in your life based on what you've said about him in this podcast. The lessons that you learned from him. I think that may be a way to approach fatherhood. Like, hey, if your kid is on a podcast 15 years from now, what is he going to say about you? Before you make a crazy decision as a dad. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe think about that.
Can we put that?
That's knowing your ship.
That's knowing your ship. Yeah.
Yeah, we can put that wherever. Where did you want to put it?
Can we trademark that? Can we put it into a catchy little phrase and then trademark it?
We should write a book and then we should sell it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What would it be called? Well, how would we put that into a phrase? What would that be?
In 15 years, what is your kid going to say about you on a podcast? Talking about you.
That seems a little long.
That
seems a little long. I was trying to figure out a way to consolidate that a bit.
Maybe we could make a clever acronym.
Where's Hanley when we need him?
Well, if Handley were here, full confession, Todd Handley is one of the people in my life. Like, Todd Handley's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Todd Handley's also in my life. Guys, I think.
Well, he was one of the guys I was thinking that you surround yourself with. That he needed you, or you needed him.
No.
Listen. By the way, we're just teasing Todd Handley. Todd Handley he's many things.
Todd's one of those guys that I was referring to earlier, that he puts on a shell and he makes it a little difficult for people to get to know him. Mm-hmm. But honestly, once you get to the true Todd Handley, kind of the deep version of Todd Handley, he's great. He's fantastic.
There's a lot of layers to get to a lot of layers to get to foundational Todd Handley. You have to get to the foundation, and
some of that is gotten through by being willing to throw milkshakes at each other,
like
on a golf
jousting.
Course. Milkshake jousting on a golf course.
Don't underestimate the value of throwing milkshakes at each other on a golf course to break through some barriers.
Yeah, I mean, as odd as it sounds, it was a bonding moment.
The layers to get through Todd are uncomfortable and funny and inappropriate. But once you break through,
Once you break through, it's
truthfully,
it's still a little inappropriate.
At the foundation, it's still a little
but it's
inappropriate.
meaningful. It's meaningful.
But
it's deep.
It is all of those things.
Yes.
Meaningful and deep. How the heck did we get on Todd Handley?
I don't know.
Parenting and all this stuff. Okay, so your wife has come into you and she set you straight. This is a very rocky moment with Adrian, and Adrian says, come on, Rocky, stop. Come on. She gives the inspirational time, and then he goes out and beats Clubber Lang or whatever he does. Okay, so you've had the Rocky moment. What do you do now?
We went to work. We went to work, and we went in and put together a plan and said, what are the things we need to fix? We started, honestly, I think that one of the biggest things that we did is we started focusing on solutions instead of the problems. I think it's easy in those moments to focus on the problems, and we said, hey, listen, She told me I've got to make this happen. I've already made the decision, so let's get to work and find the solutions. And so we did. We started making progress. We started making quite a bit of progress. Unfortunately, the guy who had originally enticed me to leave Franklin, his financial backer, about the time that we kind of started figuring things out, we had put together a whole plan on, hey, we finally kind of figured some of this stuff out. We're starting to make some progress. But we gotta create some more leads, and in order to create some more leads, we gotta spend some money. And so I sent him out with a game plan on, hey, if we spend this money, here's the leads that you feel we can create, and based on that, here's what we'll be able to produce. It was basic business model, like the most basic you could come up with.
Sometimes that's the best thing you could do. Is just get back to the basics.
Apparently, he did not do a great job of conveying it, because he came back the next morning and said, "Hey, we're done. We need you and your friends out of this building by the end of the week."
So your first effort at putting together a strategy and a business plan was rejected. Like Grandpa's day one. Like
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Hey,
but
it was a similar situation. Hey, my financial backer said he's firing you. he needs you guys out.
Yes, but guess what? You've already been through that experience.
I'd already been through it.
You can manage that. Okay. So, but at this point, do you have kind of? Do you feel like this is a good place to make a living? Like this kind of.
I had seen enough success, literally within just a few weeks, I'd seen enough success to realize that, hey, we can do this. We can make this happen. And it literally just so happened that the day before this all kind of came down, I'd had another friend of mine reach out to me and said, hey, we want to, myself and my other partners, we want to take you golfing. We want to sit down and talk to you. And essentially what they wanted to talk to me about was they wanted to talk to me about us coming on with them and starting to call on some of their leads instead of the group that I'd been associated with. And I don't know, it was a weird, we'll call it coincidence, but it was.
I know, but there are no coincidences. Like your story is like door slamming. Look at this other one. Opening up.
It's happened a lot. I mean, it happens to everybody, though, right? Like
you're a good guy, but you're not that good.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
You deserve all of that.
Like I said, I the Lord knows I'm really not that smart, so He's got to open doors.
Oh, so He's
me.
taking.
He's helping me.
He's taking some pity on you. That makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
About your circumstances.
Smart guys like you don't need that much
help.
Guys
I don't need any help.
Guys like me, I need the help.
No, I don't need anybody.
Yeah.
You guys, you can leave. I'm just kidding. I was just teasing. Caleb, you can leave, but Tess, you stay here. We need you. Tell me about the importance. You mentioned this. We started focusing on solutions and not the problem. Tell me how that served you in your business life.
I think that's the epitome of all good business principles, is the more you can focus on solutions and not get caught up in the problems, the more successful you're going to be. And I think it's easier said than done. Even with me these days, I'll get pitched on business ideas, and I'll have people that'll come to me. I mean, your natural instinct is you immediately start thinking about all the ways that things aren't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like you. there's parts of you that are like, hey, okay, that resonates with me. I think that can work. I can see where that's going to be good. But there's a large part of you, especially as you're thinking about investing in a business, that you're immediately trying to, you're being protective. You're saying, hey, I want to hang on to the money I have. Yeah, I want to make more money, but I want to hang on to the money I have. So I don't want to spend it frivolously on a bad idea.
Right.
So your natural instinct is to try and think of all the ways that things aren't going to work sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's a hindrance in some ways, because I think it's hard to transition from that to, okay, now let's get focused on the solutions and let's figure out how to really push that out there. And I think sometimes in business it takes some pig-headed determination. Like you have to be willing to push past naysayers and obstacles that are going to come in your way. Everybody you've had on this podcast, I'm sure, that's been successful in business has had to push past at least 2 or 3 big obstacles.
It's a recurring theme. It comes up in every podcast. Overcoming obstacles. I have 2 questions. 2. 1. Is pig-headed determination, is that a New Mexico thing?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
I've never heard that before. Pig-headed determination.
Yeah.
Did you raise pigs?
I didn't. I had friends that did.
And are pigs particularly determined?
Yeah.
They are.
Once they get it in their mind that they're going to do something, specifically eating, once they get it in their mind that they're going to eat something,
Well, then I can align.
There's almost
I
nothing.
align with a pig, because if I'm hungry, look out.
There you go. Okay. Just channel that. Just figure out a way to channel that.
Okay, we'll take note of that. That's going to clip. The origin of pig-headed determination somewhere in New Mexico, maybe the Four Corners area.
I have no idea. Honestly, you want to know where I heard it? I'll tell you exactly where I heard it.
Okay.
There was a guy by the name of Chet Holmes. He ran a consulting company. He ended up teaming up with Tony Robbins, and they put together a lot of Tony Robbins' initial business mastery stuff. And Chet Holmes used to talk about pig-headed determination.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know Tony Robbins?
I know Tony Robbins. I knew Chet Holmes better. Chet Holmes, we hired actually at one point to come in and do some consulting for us. Yeah.
Is it true that Tony Robbins' fingers are abnormally long? Or do they just look like that?
He is a large man. He's a large man. And he has a ton of energy. That guy, I don't know. He might be able to outwork my dad. He might be the only person that I know that can outwork my dad.
Or my grandpa. I have the same experience. Both of my grandfathers, lights out.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay, second question. When you're talking about solutions, this one's a serious question. Solutions.
Have none of the questions up to this point been serious?
Nope.
Okay.
Not one.
Good to know.
Solutions over problems. Have you ever had this experience? I love that idea, and I've found myself in that. I can be more of a naysayer, it's not going to work, this and that, and finding all of the problems. But when you can get into the mindset of, these are the ways that it can work, you start going down the path, and maybe that solution doesn't work, but you're already on the path of being creative and figuring things out, that it leads down to something else that is a solution, or that is another pathway, and then another pathway and another pathway. I'm getting the point of you have to allow yourself the creativity to focus on what it can be, not what it can't be.
Correct. Yeah. I think that's another principle. I've not always been good at that in business. Sometimes I get too pig-headed, and I want to stay focused on the one thing that I thought was going to be the key idea or the key solution originally.
Because you get invested in it.
You get invested in it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your own idea.
Absolutely.
If it's your own idea, you even get more invested in it.
No question.
But I think that guys that have been really, really good in business have the ability to do both. They have the ability to be able to pivot, as a lot of people in the business world call it, but still stay focused on that solutions oriented and then be determined enough to see something through.
I think you've given me some hope about my golf game. I think I'm going to approach
Single digit.
I think I'm going to approach my golf game that way from now on. And if we're ever golfing together, then just remind me of that.
Do you think that's it, or do you think that maybe the pivot is to another sport?
Don't. That's so. That's not uplifting.
Nice.
Remember, I'm not one of your kids.
You can do this. You can do this.
Yes.
You can do this.
Thank you.
You actually have a really good golf swing. There's no reason why you can't be a single digit handicap.
I've seen my golf swing, and I thought, that's not me. That's some old, terrible golfer. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's me.
No,
that really is me.
We're
going to get it this year. We're going to do it.
We're going to do
okay?
it.
All
Okay.
right. It's a promise to you, from you to me. Promise.
And to all of your 10 followers.
You know what? I think my mom started following too. So
It's up to 11.
we picked up another. It's, you know what? Slow and steady wins the race.
That's right.
Okay, so you jump into this.
I've listened to your podcast, by the way.
What do you think?
I like it.
Like, what do you think of the format?
I like it.
I like to dig into.
I like these types of things, though. I enjoy hearing other people that have had success in business talk about their hard times, the things that they went through, how they got through them.
Yes, I feel the same way. I'm always fascinated. Like, for me, you know, when people say when you teach something, you always learn more than you're teaching. I feel that way every time I have a conversation with somebody and get a chance to sit here. It's like, this experience for me is super meaningful. I hope other people get something. I really enjoy it. And I like the story aspect of it. I want to know all about the ins and outs. Like,
Makes it real. The story aspect makes it
being
real.
with your dad, being fired by your grandfather, like hiring a security guard who was dating your sister. Come on.
A lot of weird things happen in New Mexico. That's just the way
UFOs.
it is.
We didn't even talk about
We
UFOs.
didn't talk about
Did you ever
UFOs.
see any?
I did not. No, I
Were
did
you
not.
looking? Aliens.
Not really.
Did you ever
Not really.
buy alien jerky?
I did not. No.
But
I don't think
you
that was
can.
a thing. Hatch green chili was a thing.
That's the best. Okay, should we do the 3 random questions at this point? Like, what's your favorite food? You mentioned Hatch chilies, but you went to Mississippi, and Mississippi has some
Fantastic food.
Yes. Okay,
Mississippi has some fantastic
so
food.
what's your favorite food?
I would say my go-to food is Mexican food. I really, really like Mexican food. But I would say that if I were down in the South, that Cajun, I really, really like Cajun food.
But spicy?
It's spicy, yeah. So a lot of Cajun food is spicy, and that may be part of the reason why.
What's your go-to Cajun meal?
That's a good question. So down there, they make what they call po' boy sandwiches. That's not really Cajun. You know, they'll do a shrimp po' boy sandwich down there. So maybe my favorite Cajun. We had some people that cooked down there for us, and they made some really good crawfish pie, crawfish etouffee. So both of those were really, really good, and I enjoyed those. Like a good crawfish etouffee is
Okay, but that's they've already taken the.
yeah.
Have you? Do you eat the crawfish the other way too, where you just suck it out of the?
Suck the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you do a crawfish boil down there, they pretty much make you like if you don't do that, they might run you out of the state. You know
Well, tell me about that experience, because I tried it once.
And what did you think?
I didn't do it again. I haven't done it again.
I wouldn't say that it was pleasurable for me. Like people that say that it is good for them. But
I know there's people who love it.
But for me,
lots of people who love it.
Well, they say they love the juices of it. The juices are better, you know, but in my mind, I couldn't get over the fact that it was just brain matter. You know, like it's you're sucking stuff out of its brain. That was weird to me.
Yep, me too.
But I did love the crawfish, like the crawfish boil itself, just the tail.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
that's good. Okay, we haven't even got to the end of your story, but if there was anything else that you could do in life and be successful, what would it be?
I think it would probably be an executive at a shipping company.
I mean, let's not go crazy. Like, be something reasonable. If you could do something reasonable based on your talents and abilities.
Well,
that's like
we've already talked
that's like
about.
I want to be the president of the United States. An executive at a shipping and logistics technology company here in Salt Lake City,
in Sandy, Utah.
84079.
Okay.
Well, keep dreaming.
Yeah, keep dreaming. Okay, well,
Keep dreaming.
If it can't be that, let me go to something a little bit more simple then. It'd probably be race car driver.
Like Formula One?
Formula One.
Or
Formula
NASCAR.
One.
But you're more of a NASCAR guy. Like, you grew up in Mexico. That's not Formula One. That's like NASCAR.
But keep in mind, I was 5'9", 138 pounds. Like those guys
They
fit in the Formula One cars.
Very much your whole style, like the skinny pants, you're way more Euro than NASCAR.
I mean, I was kind of...
You're not Ricky Bobby.
I maybe should have been in Europe as opposed to New Mexico. Like that's...
Do you think you got misplaced at birth?
Maybe.
Well, it worked out well for everybody.
Maybe the aliens, switched me. And
Okay, this is the really important part of the story. We only have a few minutes left, but I want you to talk about it as much as you will. I want you to talk about the obstacles, the challenge, and the lessons. What can people learn from that? What did you learn from that? What can people learn from that in their business life? Because up to this point, you've built a very successful business.
Yeah.
With some good partners, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. I would say that, it's easy to listen to all the reasons why you can't do something. That's always going to be easy. I think a lot of people get sucked into that. And I think, quite frankly, that's kind of what I was in growing up. I think I was kind of in this mindset. I had a very, very simple outlook on life. I wanted to, the only reason I was going to go to college was so I could try and get a degree to somehow get a job at a bigger corporation where I could make, somewhere between $40,000 to $60,000 a year, which in New Mexico terms back then was good money.
Great, yeah.
And work for them for a long period of time and then eventually retire. And once I realized that there was more than just that, and that there was opportunity beyond that. Like I'll never forget learning about the Charles Givens stuff, just simply from the fact that it made me realize I could look at life and finances differently. Like I didn't have to fit in a box. Like that didn't have to be me. And like I said, that was mind blowing for me. And so, you take that, and then I think as I think about that, of course, that doesn't create all of your, everything's peachy from there on. You're going to have bumps and bruises along the way. You're going to have difficulties. You're going to have obstacles that you're going to have to overcome, as we've talked about a few of them. I think that the thing is, though, that things always turn. Like, in life, there's a lot of ebbs and flows, and there's going to be some downtimes. But if you can withstand the downtimes, which I'm a believer that everybody can, with the right support group around them, with the right people that they're talking to, I believe everybody can, then the good times are going to come back around. The good times are going to be there. And quite honestly, you're going to appreciate the good times even more when they come back around, because you've been through some of those downtimes. So I don't know. That's my simple sum it up version of things.
How difficult was it in the downtime?
So I don't know if you're referring specifically to, the big downtime that I'm thinking of, but, so obviously you're referring to, I start my call center, we go through several, bumps along the way. It takes us a while to get it up and going, but we finally get it up and going. It becomes a successful call center. We ended up having it for about 15 years. We transitioned from just a call center to, we start a live events company. And we start doing live events. We take off. We did very well within a very short period of time. I think within 4 years, we were doing, just a little shy of $200 million a year in revenue. And so we took off, and we were doing very, very well. And we were doing it with some very good partners. We had a lot of really good, successful partners that we were using, some celebrity endorsers that we were using, and we felt like we were doing a great job for people. We felt like we were, just like I had gone through, just like the transformation I had gone through personally. We felt like we were doing that for other people. We were
providing
them a valuable service. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, after about 9 years of running that company, we got sued. We got sued by the FTC. And FTC and the Utah Consumer Protection Division sued us. And what they sued us for essentially was for using false and misleading claims, what they termed as false and misleading claims. And so for us, it was out of the blue. We felt like we had gotten back alley jumped by these guys. And the reason why we felt that way was because we had been proactively going and seeking feedback from them. So for about a 3 or 4 year period of time, we'd actually been going into their offices and saying, hey, we know you don't like our industry. We'd seen them sue, a number of other people in the industry. We're like, we know you don't like the industry. You don't quite see eye to eye with the industry. It's not traditional education. but we feel like we're providing a great service for people who want this, and we feel like we're doing it the right way, and we just want to make sure that we're in good standing with you. Everything that we'd ever heard was positive. Everything that we'd ever heard was, we like you guys, we're grateful that you're coming in doing this. So when we got sued, again, we felt like, we'd just gotten stabbed in the back by our neighbor who had been telling us all along that, hey, let me come mow your lawn.
Looks great.
Yeah, it looks great.
Amazing. Yeah.
So anyways, it was tough. That from a business perspective, absolutely 100% was the hardest obstacle I'd ever encountered, and to this day have ever encountered. And so for 2 solid years, it was a battle. It was a battle of them saying, you guys are a scheme, you guys are fraudulent, you guys are misleading people, and us saying, no, we're not. We've got success stories to prove that this stuff works. We use disclaimers all along the way. We had people sign, like all the things that we were told by them that we were supposed to be doing, and we were doing. And so obviously there was a disagreement on what the reality of that situation was, and clearly to this day I feel differently than some of them felt, but we ended up settling it. After 2 years, we settled, and it was a no admit or deny settlement. So we felt like that was a good way to just move forward and move on to other things. We got their point. Their point was they really do not like that industry. And, I think at one point I had a conversation with one of them. I was like, well, what could we have done to be in good standing in your opinion? And they said nothing, because we think that everything, any success anybody ever had with any of your programs was purely coincidental. They were going to make that money anyways. But
oh my gosh.
So, I took their message. Their message was loud and clear that they do not like that space. They do not like that industry. And so we were just ready to move on. But I think coming through that, that's the darkest I'd ever been. That was the hardest time I'd ever had, trying to, because it's one thing for somebody else to have an opinion on you, but you kind of look at the government organization as it's held to a different standard. And so when the government's suing you, it's like, well, wait a minute, like maybe I'm a bad guy. Like maybe I've been looking at this different, than I should have been looking. Maybe I have been misleading people. But then you dig into it and you start to get into it and you're like, no, that's not the case. Like, somehow along the way, we got misaligned with them, and you start to realize that it's a business to them too. It's transactional. Like they've got a job to do. Somebody in their organization, decides that, we're going to go after this industry, and you happen to be in their crosshairs. And once they get there, they're going there. So
yeah. Okay. So I know you have to leave, but one last thing, as you're going through this dark time, what are the things that you leaned on? Where did you find more of this solutions mindset? How were you going to work out of it?
So it was two things, because one, you're trying to find a solution for this lawsuit, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate that. And that's a whole mess in and of itself, honestly. There's no easy way to fight the government. There just isn't. They're the big bad wolf out there, and so that's not easy to navigate. But then the other thing is, and probably what you're alluding to, is like, how do you move forward, beyond that? And that's not easy either, because, all of a sudden, your confidence is down, and you're saying, hey, listen, how are people going to view me as they see that, I just got sued by the government, and this is going to hurt my reputation. And I think the thing that saved me personally was that I'd already built a really good network around me. It's the same thing that we talked about to begin with, where I had really, really good friends around me. And when I heard them coming to me saying to me, listen, Jeff, we know you. We know that this is not you. We want to move forward with you. We want to do more things with you. Like that in and of itself was empowering to me. I don't know. You just kind of figure out a way to pick yourself up in the mornings, even though you don't want to get out of bed in the mornings sometimes, because it hurts. You find a way to pick yourself up and you go to work. You start trying to focus on solutions. I think for me personally, I made a whole list of all the things that I could potentially do. What's next for me? All I've ever known is kind of that industry, but what's next for me? And I had some really good friends and some really good business relationships in addition to that, that came to me and said, hey, we want you to lean in over here. We want you to start spending more time with us and helping us out. And I don't know. I mean, really good friends and network are kind of what got me through some of it.
I'm so glad that's where this ended up, because I think that's the theme throughout this, what we're talking about now, as I look across your life and your experiences, the people that you've had around you and the people that you've placed around you have been that foundation for whatever you've accomplished. You said it early, like you never have success without people around you. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you were alluding to it or not, or indirectly or directly. But as you wrap this up, that's how I look at your life, is that you've built this network, this team around you, and that has been your foundation. We're going to let you go, but you're in such a great industry now that I want to talk about. We're going to have you come back and tell us about what you're doing currently. But
we'll come back. I'll come back with some of my partners. I've been lucky to be able to transition into this world of golf courses and golf course development and real estate development in general. And honestly, those are some of the guys that I feel like they picked me up. They picked me up by both my arms and said, hey, let's go get more involved in this, and they've been great.
Yeah. Well, it's two-sided. Like, surround yourself with great people. That's because you're going to find yourself in need at some point. But also, be the resource. Be a resource for someone else.
True.
And by the way, you've always been that for me. I know this is going to get too serious for us. I don't want to.
This is not our style.
This is not our style at all. So we better make some joke like, you look terrible today. Hey, honestly, thank you so much for your time. It's a fascinating story. Come back and visit us again.
Fantastic.
There he is, Jeff Spangler. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Know Your Ship podcast presented by eHub. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.